The sun hung low over the Sao, painting the dusty streets of Kudugu in hues of orange and gold. Amina Diallo, barely 19, sat on a worn stool outside her family's mud brick home, her fingers tracing patterns in the date. Her village, nestled in the heart of Burkina Faso, was quiet today, but Amina's mind was anything but. The radio crackled from inside, carrying a voice that seemed to shake the very air, a voice that belonged to Ibrahim Traore, the young leader who had become a beacon for a restless nation. Brothers and sisters, Traore's voice boomed through the static. We stand at a turning point. Our lands are rich, yet our people are poor. Our voices are loud, yet ignored. The time for true independence is now. We must rise, not to destroy, but to build. Not to beg, but to demand respect. Amina's heart raced. She had heard speeches before, politicians promising roads, schools, jobs, but this was different. Traore wasn't just speaking to leaders or cities. He was speaking to her, to the youth, to the forgotten. His words felt like a fire igniting in her chest, a fire she hadn't known she could feel. Her village, like so many others, bore the scars of a world that took more than it gave. The gold mines nearby, owned by a foreign company, glittered with wealth that never reached Kudugu's people. The fields, once fertile, were parched from erratic rains and years of neglect. Amina's father, a farmer, worked tirelessly, yet their table was often bare. Her older brother, Issa, had left for the city, chasing dreams that crumbled under the weight of unemployment. And Amina herself, though bright and eager, had left school at 16 when her family could no longer afford the fees. But Traore's words stirred something new. The youth are the engine of change, he said. Do not wait for permission to dream. Educate yourselves. Unite. Your voice is your weapon. Amina stood, dusting off a skate. She didn't know how, but she knew she had to act. The fire in Traore's voice was now her own. The next morning, Amina gathered her courage and walked to the village square, where the baobab tree stood like a silent elder. She carried a small notebook, its pages filled with notes she'd scribbled late into the night, ideas inspired by Traore's call for self-reliance and unity. She wasn't sure anyone would listen, but she had to try. Under the baobab shade, she found her friends, Mariam, a seamstress with a sharp wit, Suleiman, a mechanic who could fix anything but his own broken hopes, and Fato, who sold mangoes at the market and dreamed of becoming a teacher. They were all her age, all restless, all tired of waiting for a future that never came. Listen, Amina began, her voice trembling. Last night, I heard Ibrahim Traore on the radio. He said we're the ones to change things. Not foreigners, not politicians. Us. Our village is dying. The mine takes our gold, the market takes our crops, and we get nothing. But we can fight back. Not with guns, but with our minds, our hands, our unity. Mariam raised an eyebrow. Amina, what can we do? We're nobody. The big companies, the government, they don't care about us. They don't have to, Amina replied, her voice growing steadier. Traore said true independence starts with us. We can grow our own food, teach our own children, build our own future. But we have to start together. Suleiman scratched his head. You're talking big, Amina. But where do we even begin? Amina opened her notebook. Hey, I wrote down ideas. We can start a cooperative, pool our skills, grow crops we control, sell them ourselves. We can teach each other what we know. Fato, you're good with words. Teach the kids to read. Mariam, your sewing could make clothes for the village. Suleiman, you fix machines. Help us repair tools to farm better. I'll organize it. We don't need to wait for outsiders. Fato's eyes lit up. Like a school under the tree, I could teach the little ones, like I always wanted. Exactly, Amina said. Traore said we must reclaim our knowledge, our pride. Let's start here, in Kudugu. The four friends talked late into the afternoon, their skepticism giving way to excitement. By dusk, they had a plan, a cooperative to farm, teach, and trade, free from the middlemen who bled their village dry. They would call it Faso Yiriwa, Burkina's pride. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Amina and her friends went door to door, sharing Traore's words and their vision. At first, the elders were wary. You're too young, said old man Diallo, Amina's uncle. The world doesn't change because children dream. But Amina didn't back down. Traore is young, too, she countered. He says the youth are the future, but the future is now. Help us, or at least don't stop us. Slowly, the village began to listen. Farmers donated seeds. A retired teacher, Madame Zongo, offered to help Fato with lessons. Even the skeptical old man Diallo gave them a plot of land to start their cooperative farm. Amina organized work groups. Some cleared the field, others built a small shed for tools. Suleiman repaired an old water pump, bringing life to the dry soil. Mariam sewed bags to store their harvest, embroidering them with the words Faso Yiriwa. But the path wasn't smooth. The foreign mining company, which controlled much of the region's economy, didn't take kindly to the village's newfound ambition. One day, a sleek car rolled into Kudugu, and a man in a suit stepped out, flanked by local officials. He introduced himself as Monsieur Dupont, a representative of the mine. "We hear you're starting a cooperative," Dupont said, his smile thin. "That's admirable, but you need permits, licenses. And water? That pump you're using, it's on our land. We could help, you know. We offer loans, training, even jobs at the mine." Amina felt her stomach tighten. This was the neocolonialism Traore had warned about, offers of help that came with chains. She stepped forward, her voice firm. "We don't need your loans, monsieur. We're building this ourselves. The water, the land, it's ours, not yours." Dupont's smile faded. "Be careful, young lady. Independence is a nice word, but the world doesn't work that way." After he left, the village buzzed with fear. Some urged Amina to take the company's offer. "They have power," said a farmer. "They can cut off our water, our market." But Amina remembered Traore's words. Aid must not be a tool for control. She called a meeting under the baobab. "If we accept their help, we'll be their servants," she said. "They'll own our harvest, our future." Traore said we must stand together. If we do, they can't break us. The village rallied. They dug a new well, using Suleiman's ingenuity to fashion pipes from scrap metal. Fatu's classes grew, with children and adults learning to read and write under the tree. The cooperative's first harvest, millet and sorghum, was small but theirs. They sold it directly to a nearby town, bypassing the middlemen who had cheated them for years. Months later, Kudugu was transformed. The cooperative had grown, with more families joining. The school under the baobab now had benches, donated by a carpenter inspired by the youth's resolve. Mariam's bags were in demand, her designs a symbol of local pride. And Amina, once just a girl tracing patterns in the date, was now a leader, her notebook filled with plans for a clinic, a market, even a radio station to spread their story. But the world outside wasn't silent. News of Kudugu's success reached other villages, sparking similar movements. In Ouagadougou, Traore heard of the cooperative and sent a message. Faso Yiriwa is proof that Africa's future lies in its people. Keep rising. The mining company, sensing a threat, tightened its grip. They lobbied officials to impose new taxes on the cooperative, claiming it was unregulated. But Amina and her friends were ready. They organized a march, not just in Kudugu but across neighboring villages. Hundreds walked, carrying signs that read, "Our land, our future, and respect, not control." Fato taught the marchers Traore's words, turning them into songs that echoed through the Sahel. The pressure worked. The government, wary of growing unrest, backed off. The cooperative was granted legal status, and the mine's influence waned. Kudugu wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. One evening, as the village celebrated their first anniversary as Faso Yiriwa, Amina stood under the baobab, now adorned with lanterns made by the children. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of roasted maize. She looked at her friends, Mariam, sewing a new dress, Suleiman, tinkering with a solar panel, Fato, reading to a circle of eager students, and felt the fire within her burn brighter. Traore's voice had sparked this change, but it was their hands, their unity, that built it. Amina thought of his words, "Our struggle is shared. Our liberation is bound together." She knew Kudugu's fight was part of something bigger, not just Burkina Faso, but for Africa, for Palestine, for every corner of the world where people demanded dignity. As the stars emerged, Amina spoke to the crowd. "This is our independence," she said. Not a flag, not a promise, but a future we're building. Traore showed us the way, but we are the ones walking it. And we won't stop, not until every village, every nation, stands tall. The crowd cheered, their voices rising like a tide. In that moment, Amina knew the fire true independence wasn't just in her heart. It was in them all, burning bright, ready to light the world.